Have you ever paused in the middle of a quiet afternoon, when the noise of the world momentarily fades, and paid close attention to the private commentary running through your mind? So often, we go through our days accompanied by a continuous soundtrack of subtle judgment, a soft, persistent whisper that measures everything we do, everything we say, and everything we feel. Think about what happens in those tiny, seemingly insignificant moments when things do not go as planned. When you drop your keys on the way out the door, miss an unstated detail in a project at work, or accidentally speak over a friend during dinner. What is the very first phrase that forms in your thoughts? For many of us, it is a sharp, instantaneous reprimand, a harsh inner impulse that scolds us before we even have time to catch our breath. We label ourselves as foolish, careless, or disorganized, reacting to our smallest stumbles with an immediate wave of frustration. If a close friend, a coworker, or even a complete stranger made that exact same simple mistake in front of you, how would you respond to them? You would likely smile, offer a word of comfort, and reassure them without a second thought. You would tell them that it happens to everyone, that it is no big deal, and that they should not worry for a single second. We offer grace, patience, and warmth to the outside world so naturally, yet when it comes to the space inside our own minds, we enforce an unyielding standard of perfection. We treat ourselves with a strict, cold intolerance that we would never dream of directing towards someone we care about. Where did we learn to talk to ourselves this way? Somewhere along the line, many of us began to absorb the unspoken idea that being hard on ourselves was necessary for growth. We mistakenly believed that self-criticism was the only thing keeping us on track, holding us accountable, or pushing us to be better. But the truth is, endless criticism does not motivate us. It simply exhausts us. It leaves us feeling guarded, anxious, and deeply weary within our own skin. It turns our inner sanctuary into a place where we constantly have to defend ourselves against our own thoughts. To begin healing, we have to start noticing the subtle tone of this internal relationship. Healing is not about suddenly becoming perfect or never making another mistake. It is about changing the voice that meets you when you do. It is about realizing that you do not need to earn your own kindness, nor do you need to prove your worth before treating yourself with gentle care. The moment you start speaking to yourself with the same tenderness you so freely extend to others, the entire texture of your life begins to soften. If you are sitting here today and feeling ready to begin shifting that relationship, take a quiet breath right now. Let go of the heavy expectation to have everything figured out. Drop a comment below and leave this simple affirmation as a gentle promise to yourself. I choose to treat myself with gentle patience starting today. Let those words settle into your mind, ground your heart, and remind you that you are worthy of your own love, right here and right now. Think about the heavy, invisible burden of trying to be endlessly dependable for everyone around you. From the moment your morning begins, there is a subtle, continuous pressure to hold everything together. You might find yourself carefully organizing complex schedules for your family, stepping in to solve unexpected problems at work before anyone else even notices them, or offering a calm, patient listening ear during late evening phone calls with a friend in need. You cushion the world for the people in your life, thoughtfully softening your own words, setting aside your own needs, and adjusting your tone so that everyone around you feels completely comfortable, safe, and entirely at ease. To the outside world, you appear strong, composed, and effortlessly capable. People look at you and see someone who has it all under control, someone who never slips, never breaks, and never tires. But only you know what it actually costs to maintain that appearance. Only you know the quiet, heavy exhaustion that settles into your chest when the day finally winds down. When you retreat into your own private space at night, when the door is closed and the silence of the room settles around you, the atmosphere changes instantly. The softness you offered to others all day completely vanishes, replaced by a harsh, unrelenting internal court. In the quiet of the night, your mind begins to run replay loops of every single moment where you felt unpolished, awkward, or unprepared. You replay the brief pause in a conversation and convince yourself you said the wrong thing. You dwell on a small task left unfinished and treat it as a personal failure. You look at your own overwhelming fatigue and ask yourself why you could not stay longer, accomplish more, manage your energy better, or simply be stronger. We hold up a sharp magnifying glass to our smallest missteps, analyzing every imperfection under a glaring, critical light. Yet, at the exact same time, we completely overlook the massive, quiet effort it took just to show up and give our absolute best to a world that asks for so much. We celebrate others for simply trying, but we refuse to grant ourselves that same grace. We judge ourselves not by our intentions or our tired hearts, but by an impossible, invisible standard of absolute perfection that no human being could ever truly meet. Where did we absorb the idea that our worth is tied to how much we can carry without breaking? Why do we believe that asking for help, feeling tired, or admitting that we are overwhelmed makes us inadequate? The truth is, carrying the weight of everyone else's comfort while abandoning your own is not sustainable. It leaves you feeling hollowed out, performing a role of strength while quietly starving for the same care, understanding, and tenderness you so freely give away. Healing begins when we learn to put down the magnifying glass and step away from the impossible expectations we have built around ourselves. It starts when we realize that the warmth, care, and patience we pour into external demands is something we also deeply, inherently deserve to receive internally. You do not have to be unbreakable to be worthy of love. You do not have to carry the whole world on your shoulders to prove that you matter. Give yourself permission to be human, to be weary, and to be in progress. Allow yourself to rest without feeling guilty, to say no without offering an endless explanation, and to retreat into your own heart with gentle understanding. The moment you start treating your own fatigue with compassion instead of judgment, the heavy weight of those unseen expectations finally begins to lift, allowing you to breathe softly again. When you feel a sudden, sharp wave of irritation while trying to balance a dozen minor tasks at home, or when a sudden heavy fatigue settles into your shoulders right in the middle of a routine conversation, how do you usually respond to yourself? If you are like most people, your habitual reaction is to immediately push past it. You tell yourself to toughen up, to keep going, to brush away the discomfort as an annoying inconvenience, or to simply ignore the quiet knot forming in your stomach. We treat our emotional and physical fatigue as if it were a weakness, an unwanted interruption to our productivity, or something to be disciplined into silence. We spend so much of our lives operating on autopilot, marching through our daily routines, while actively ignoring the subtle signals our bodies and hearts are constantly sending us. But those quiet feelings, the sudden tightness in your chest when a boundary is crossed, the profound heaviness that makes simple choices feel impossible, or the quiet ache of wanting to step back and rest, are not flaws in your character. They are simple, direct, and gentle warnings, letting you know that a threshold has been reached. They are your inner self, pulling on your sleeve, trying to get your attention before you burn out completely. When we continuously ignore these soft warnings, they do not just go away. They simply speak louder. The quiet irritation transforms into explosive resentment. The light fatigue turns into chronic, bone-deep exhaustion. The subtle anxiety turns into an overwhelming sense of feeling trapped. We end up living in a state of constant internal conflict, endlessly fighting against our own natural limits instead of honoring them. We treat our own limits as failures rather than normal, human boundaries. Why do we find it so difficult to listen to ourselves? Somewhere along the way, many of us learned to believe that taking a break, acknowledging our limits, or honoring our rest meant that we were giving up or letting people down. We came to believe that our value was measured by how much strain we could endure without complaining. So we learn to silence our inner voice, overriding our own comfort to keep everyone else satisfied, until we no longer even recognize what we are feeling. Healing requires us to stop running from our own discomfort. It asks us to sit quietly with these signals without instantly trying to fix them, suppress them, or judge ourselves for having them. It means choosing to stop ignoring the subtle check engine lights of your mind and body. Instead of responding with annoyance, healing happens when you lean into those difficult moments with genuine, gentle curiosity. Imagine what would change if the next time you felt that familiar wave of overwhelm or exhaustion, you didn't scold yourself for slowing down. What if instead of saying, "Why can't I just get through this?" you paused, placed a hand over your heart, and asked with real warmth, "What part of me feels weary right now? And what small kindness does it need in this exact moment?" Listening to yourself is an act of deep, transformative self-love. It is acknowledging that you are a living, breathing human being with natural limits, not a machine designed for endless output. It is choosing to respond to your own exhaustion with the same care and concern you would give a tired child or a dear friend who needs rest. When you begin to listen to those soft warnings, you stop living in conflict with yourself. You start building an internal relationship rooted in trust, safety, and deep, restorative grace. We all carry secret, unseen parts of ourselves that we try our best to hide away. The quiet moments where we felt deeply hesitant, unexpectedly envious, completely uncertain, or broken by a painful experience. It is so completely natural to want to present only our most structured, polished, and capable self to the outside world. We carefully curate what people see, wearing a smile when we feel lost inside, and keeping our deepest insecurities safely locked behind closed doors. We hide the parts of our story that feel messy, fragile, or imperfect, because we fear that if people truly saw them, they might turn away. We convince ourselves that if we just suppress our doubts, ignore our old hurts, and pretend our flaws do not exist, they will eventually fade into nothingness. But burying these feelings only causes them to grow heavier in the dark. The energy it takes to constantly hide your own vulnerabilities is exhausting. It keeps you on guard, endlessly worried that a sudden mistake or an emotional moment will reveal the parts of yourself you have spent years trying to conceal. In his foundational work on human psychology, Carl Jung reflected on this exact struggle, writing, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." When we take a quiet moment to really consider those words, a gentle truth begins to unfold. Moving forward in life is not about erasing the difficult chapters of your past, nor is it about pretending you have never been hurt, afraid, or flawed. You do not need to construct a flawless version of yourself to be worthy of peace. Instead, true growth is about consciously choosing how you respond to those hidden, vulnerable parts today. It is about shifting your perspective from shame to understanding. Think about the traits or memories you try hardest to bury. Perhaps it is a time when you made a choice you later regretted, a moment when fear held you back from a life-changing opportunity, or a time when you felt completely overwhelmed by jealousy or sadness. When those thoughts resurface, how do you treat yourself? So often, we attack those memories with harsh criticism, feeling embarrassed or angry at our past selves for being weak or flawed. Healing begins when you decide to stop running from your own history. You do not have to discard, hide, or feel ashamed of the fragile, unpolished parts of your journey. You can choose to meet them with gentle understanding instead. Imagine looking back at the younger, less experienced version of yourself, the version that was hurt, afraid, or simply trying to survive the best way they knew how, and offering them comfort instead of blame. When you extend kindness to your hidden shadows, you stop living at war with your own past. You realize that your doubts, your scars, and your mistakes do not define your character. They are simply proof that you have lived, felt, and grown through real human experiences. You can acknowledge the hard times you went through without allowing them to dictate who you are today. By meeting your insecurities with compassion rather than judgment, you integrate every piece of your story into a stronger, more honest, and deeply authentic sense of who you are. You begin to walk through the world with a lightened heart, knowing that you no longer have to hide any part of yourself to be deserving of love, respect, and deep internal peace. Imagine a close friend coming to you after making an honest, everyday mistake. Suppose they took a wrong turn onto an unfamiliar street on their way to an important gathering, mislaid a small, valuable personal item, or accidentally spilled a glass of water across a freshly set table. How would you react to them in that moment? You would almost certainly offer immediate reassurance. You would tell them not to worry for a single second, remind them that everyone loses their focus from time to time, and gently help them fix the situation. Your instinctive response would be rooted in warmth, empathy, and comfort. Now contrast that with how you talk to yourself when you make the exact same error. When you drop something, forget a minor detail, or make a wrong turn. What does your inner voice sound like? The internal dialogue often switches instantly to a sharp, cold critique. You might call yourself foolish, careless, or incapable. You take a brief, simple oversight and frame it as if it were a fundamental flaw in your character. We punish ourselves for being human, holding our own hearts to a standard of perfection that we would never demand from anyone else. Why are we so quick to offer grace to the world around us while withholding it from ourselves? Many of us grew up believing that being hard on ourselves was necessary, that if we were not harsh, we would grow lazy, irresponsible, or soft. But constant self-criticism does not help us grow. It simply makes us feel unsafe within our own minds. It creates an internal environment where making a mistake feels dangerous, leaving us constantly anxious and waiting for the next slip-up. The practice of self-love is built on bridging this painful gap. It is the deliberate, conscious choice to catch yourself when that sharp reaction arises. Take a quiet breath and reframe the dialogue in real time. It is learning to speak to yourself with the same gentle patience you so freely extend to others. Replacing harsh critiques with gentle words does not mean ignoring your mistakes or pretending you never mess up. It simply means changing the way you support yourself through those moments. It means choosing to say, "I am carrying a lot today, and making a simple mistake is okay, instead of, "Why can't I ever get things right?" It is acknowledging that an error is just something that happened, not a reflection of who you are. Think about how much lighter your life would feel if your mind became a safe place to land when things go wrong, rather than a courtroom where you are always on trial. Every time you replace a cruel thought with a kind one, you rewrite the emotional soundtrack of your life. You begin to build an inner sanctuary of trust, proving to yourself day by day that your worth is not conditional, and that you deserve your own love, especially when you stumble. Setting boundaries is so frequently misunderstood in our world. We often view saying no as an act of rejection, a cold wall, or a painful form of detachment. From a young age, many of us were quietly taught that to be loving meant to be entirely available, always ready to yield, always willing to set aside our own needs, and always eager to accommodate the demands of everyone else. We learned to associate our worth with how much of ourselves we could give away. Consider how often you say yes to a social request, an extra responsibility, or an added commitment, simply because saying no feels uncomfortably heavy. You feel a sharp knot of anxiety in your stomach, a quiet internal protest begging for rest. Yet the words, "Of course I can do that," slip out of your mouth almost automatically. You sacrifice your own calm to protect someone else's comfort. And what happens next? You spend the rest of the day feeling utterly drained, carrying a heavy, silent resentment that begins to poison the space inside you. You become frustrated with the very people you sought to please, not because they asked too much, but because you refused to honor your own limit. When you endlessly stretch yourself beyond your capacity, the care you offer stops being a genuine gift of love. It becomes a tired obligation born out of fear. Reclaiming your boundaries is an essential step in learning to talk to yourself with love. It requires a profound shift in perspective, realizing that protecting your peace is not a selfish act, but one of the highest forms of self-respect and genuine care. A boundary is not a wall to keep people out. It is a clear, compassionate bridge that shows people how to love you without consuming you. It is the gentle line where your needs end and another person's begin. When you choose to protect your energy, you are not withholding love from the world. You are making space to be genuinely present for the things and the people that truly matter. You are choosing to offer the best of yourself rather than the exhausted remnants of a heart that has given away too much. Imagine how much lighter your spirit would feel if you allowed yourself to honor your own limit droughts without carrying a mountain of guilt, saying, "I need some resting time this weekend," or "I am simply not able to take that on right now," is not an act of unkindness. It is an intentional, loving declaration that your health, your peace of mind, and your emotional well-being are valid and worthy of protection. Every time you honor a boundary, you send a powerful message to your inner self. You prove that you are no longer willing to abandon yourself just to keep the peace. You begin to realize that the people who truly love you will never ask you to burn yourself out to keep them warm. Boundaries preserve your capacity to love deeply, create freely, and participate fully in your own life without running on empty. They allow you to stand firmly in your own space, offering a quiet, sustained warmth that honors both your heart and the hearts of those around you. It can feel shockingly intimidating to accept genuine praise, to step into a room with quiet confidence, or to simply allow yourself to feel proud of how far you have come. For so many of us, there is a subtle, deeply ingrained habit of shrinking back whenever the spotlight turns toward our strengths. When someone offers a sincere compliment, we brush it off with an awkward laugh, deflect the attention to someone else, or immediately point out a flaw to balance the scales. We have been conditioned to believe that acknowledging our own worth is dangerous, as if standing tall in our light is somehow selfish, arrogant, or boastful. We hide behind a curtain of manufactured modesty because playing small feels safe. If we keep our expectations low, if we diminish our talents, and if we minimize our presence, we imagine we can protect ourselves from judgment, envy, or the terrifying pressure of failure. We learn to dim our own shine just to make sure those around us feel comfortable, quietly compromising our true potential to fit into spaces that were never meant to hold our whole truth. But keeping yourself small does not serve anyone. It only leaves you feeling invisible within your own life, trapped behind a wall of self-doubt that you built to keep yourself secure. Carl Jung offered insight into the profound responsibility of self-acceptance when he noted, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." When you sit with those words, you begin to realize why stepping into your full value feels so daunting. Accepting yourself completely means owning every part of who you are, not just your struggles and vulnerabilities, but your brilliance, your unique capabilities, and your right to exist fully. It means stepping out of the shadows of self-effacement and admitting that you are worthy of respect, joy, and success, without needing to ask for permission or wait for constant external validation. Think about how much energy you spend holding yourself back, monitoring your expressions, and second-guessing your accomplishments. What would happen if you decided to soften that internal resistance? What if you decided that you no longer need to apologize for being good at what you do, for having a warm heart, or for creating something beautiful? Softening the resistance to your own light is a quiet, courageous act of self-love. It is learning to stand still when someone compliments you, taking a deep breath, and simply saying, "Thank you," instead of diminishing your effort. It is allowing yourself to celebrate the small, unseen victories, finishing a project you were afraid to start, navigating a difficult conversation with grace, or choosing to rest when you were tired. When you start talking to yourself like someone you love, you become your own primary source of encouragement. You realize that your light is not meant to be hidden away out of fear. It is meant to guide you forward and warm the world around you. Accepting your own light does not diminish anyone else. It actually gives those around you implicit permission to do the exact same thing. When you allow yourself to shine, you inspire others to step out of their own shadows. Give yourself permission to occupy space in this world. Speak your truth without shrinking. Accept your accomplishments with a grateful heart, and trust that you are fully capable of handling whatever comes next. When you stop resisting your own goodness, you step into a life that feels authentic, expansive, and deeply aligned with who you were always meant to be. Holding on to past regrets is like carrying around a heavy, overpacked piece of luggage that you forgot you had the right to put down. You carry it through every new day, through every relationship, and into every new chapter of your life, quietly wondering why you always feel so tired, so guarded, and so heavy inside. Think about how often you find yourself lying awake in the dark, replaying a choice you made 3 years ago, a path you chose not to take, or a single conversation where you wish you had used different words. You analyze those past moments over and over again under the harsh, unforgiving spotlight of hindsight. You look at who you were back then, using the wisdom, maturity, and perspective you possess today, completely forgetting that back then you were doing the absolute best you could with the limited understanding, emotional tools, and strength you had at that exact time. We act as our own unyielding judges, holding our past selves to an impossible standard. We look back at our youngest, most vulnerable moments and feel a deep sense of embarrassment or guilt. We scold ourselves for not knowing better, for trusting the wrong person, for staying in a painful situation too long, or for letting an opportunity slip away. But demanding that your past self have the wisdom of your present self is an unfair, impossible expectation. Growth only happens through living, and living inevitably involves making mistakes along the way. Why is it that we can so easily forgive a dear friend when they make a huge mistake, yet we lock ourselves in an endless cycle of self-punishment for our own stumbles? When a friend comes to us carrying the heavy burden of regret, we do not remind them of their flaws. We offer them a safe place to land. We hold their hand, remind them of their good heart, and tell them that one bad choice does not erase their entire worth. Yet, when we face our own reflection, we withhold that same grace. We trap ourselves in a prison of old mistakes, endlessly replaying the guilt as if suffering is the only way to pay for our past. The unspoken art of self-forgiveness begins when you choose to break that cycle. It is the brave, quiet decision to stop punishing yourself for not knowing then what you know now. Self-forgiveness is not about pretending your past mistakes never happened, nor is it about shirking responsibility for the things you wish you had done differently. Instead, it is the intentional act of extending the same gentle compassion to your past self that you would give to a child who is simply learning how to walk through life. Imagine taking a deep, soft breath and looking back at that past version of yourself, the version that was afraid, overwhelmed, lonely, or simply trying to survive the only way they knew how. Imagine wrapping your arms around that person and saying, "I see how hard you were trying. I see how much pain you were carrying. I forgive you for not having all the answers." When you forgive yourself, you release the desperate need to change a past that is already written. You realize that your mistakes are not permanent marks on your character. They are simply the rough, unpolished stepping stones that brought you to who you are today. You do not need to keep carrying the weight of old regrets to prove that you have learned your lesson. The lesson was learned the moment your heart felt the pain. Keeping the weight only prevents you from moving forward. Putting down that heavy luggage of regret is an act of deep, transformative self-love. It frees up your hands so you can finally reach for the beauty of the present moment. It allows you to step into today without the lingering shadows of yesterday, telling you who you are allowed to be. Every time you choose self-forgiveness, you clear a path within your own mind for peace, growth, and a quiet, enduring self-love that honors how far you have truly come. Life transitions, whether changing a career path, moving into an unfamiliar living space, walking away from an old relationship, or simply stepping into a new, unwritten season of adulthood, are rarely smooth, neat, or predictable. They exist in the fragile, uncomfortable space between what used to be and what has not yet fully taken shape. These moments often leave us feeling utterly untethered, balancing the quiet excitement of new beginnings with a heavy, lingering nostalgia for the security of what we left behind. In the middle of a transition, it is so easy to lose your footing. You might find yourself waking up in the morning with a subtle knot of anxiety in your stomach, wondering if you made the right decision, or feeling overwhelmed by the sheer volume of unknown steps stretching out ahead of you. The familiar routines that once anchored your days are gone, and the new structure has not had time to solidify. In that unstable, in-between space, our natural tendency is to panic, to demand immediate clarity from ourselves, to rush the process, and to force ourselves to have every single detail mapped out before we even take the next step. When we force ourselves to adapt instantly, we treat our own hearts with a cold, unyielding impatience. We scold ourselves for feeling uncertain, for feeling tired, or for shedding tears over a past chapter that we thought we had already moved beyond. We treat our hesitation as if it were a weakness, telling ourselves that we should be stronger, faster, and more confident than we currently feel. We try to sprint through the threshold of change instead of allowing our feet to feel the ground with every slow, deliberate step. Why are we so afraid of being in progress? Somewhere along the way, we absorbed the belief that uncertainty is a flaw, that unless we are completely sure of our direction, we are somehow failing. But the truth is, no real growth happens without a period of unraveling first. Just as a seed must sit in the cold, quiet darkness of the soil before it breaks open into something new, our hearts need time to adjust, to mourn the old, and to quietly integrate the new realities of our lives. Nurturing grace through everyday transitions means giving yourself full permission to be a work in progress. It is the brave, quiet choice to stop demanding instant perfection from a heart that is simply trying to find its balance. Healing happens when you step out of the frantic urge to control every outcome and instead offer yourself gentle, warm patience in the middle of the mess. Imagine what would change if, during your next moment of overwhelming uncertainty, you stopped fighting the shift. Imagine taking a slow, deep breath, going for a quiet walk in the evening, feeling the solid earth beneath your feet, and accepting that it is completely natural not to have everything figured out right now. What if, instead of asking, "Why can't I just get my life together?" you placed a hand over your heart and said, "It is entirely fine to learn as I go. I am allowed to take this one single day at a time." Talking to yourself like someone you love during a season of change means becoming your own steady anchor when everything around you feels chaotic. It is reminding yourself that feeling lost does not mean you are going the wrong way. It simply means you are building a new path. It is recognizing that every small, quiet effort, making your morning tea, taking a brief rest, or simply choosing not to give up, is an act of profound courage. When you offer yourself grace through transitions, you soften the hard edges of change. You stop viewing the unknown as a threat and begin to see it as a quiet space of possibility. You trust that the same heart that carried you through past struggles will navigate this new season too, not through force or harshness, but through a steady, loving patience that honors every single step of your journey. Healing is not a one-time decision, a sudden revelation, or a static, final destination where everything becomes permanently effortless and smooth. It is not a place you arrive at where you will never feel sad, uncertain, tired, or insecure again. True healing is a quiet, continuous, daily commitment to how you choose to relate to yourself in the ordinary, unglamorous moments of your life. It is an ongoing practice that unfolds in the quiet space of your everyday choices. Think about how easy it is to practice self-love when everything in your life is going well, when you feel rested, accomplished, validated, and confident. But the real work of self-love, the kind that truly restores and transforms your heart, happens on the days when things feel heavy. It happens on the mornings when you wake up feeling drained before your feet even touch the floor. On the afternoons when an unexpected setback throws off your entire balance. Or on the evenings when old doubts quietly creep back into your thoughts. In those challenging moments, your instinct might still be to retreat into the old, familiar habits of self-criticism. You might catch yourself thinking that because you feel overwhelmed or upset, you have somehow failed or lost all the progress you worked so hard to make. But having a hard day is not a sign of regression. It is simply a sign that you are human. Choosing self-love means refusing to abandon yourself precisely when you need your own support the most. Self-love is deciding to speak to yourself with warmth when you feel completely exhausted, rather than scolding yourself for lacking energy. It is offering yourself endless patience when a task or a personal goal takes much longer than you originally expected, instead of labeling yourself as slow or incapable. It is treating your own heart with gentle respect, even when you feel unpolished, imperfect, or deeply vulnerable. Every single day presents 100 quiet opportunities to choose how you talk to yourself. When you drop something, do you choose to scoff in frustration? Or do you take a deep breath and remind yourself that it is no big deal? When you feel hurt by someone's words, do you tell yourself to get over it? Or do you sit with that feeling and offer yourself comfort? When you feel tired, do you force yourself to push past your breaking point? Or do you honor your need for rest without carrying a weight of guilt? Every time you catch a harsh, judgmental thought running through your mind and deliberately replace it with understanding, you build a safe sanctuary within yourself. You send a powerful signal to your inner self that you are no longer a hostile place to inhabit. You begin to trust that no matter what happens in the outside world, no matter who walks away, what plans fall apart, or what mistakes you make, you will always have your own back. Remember that the tone you use inside your own mind shapes the texture of your entire life. If your internal voice is constantly sharp, cold, and demanding, even the greatest achievements will feel hollow and unsafe. But when your internal voice becomes gentle, encouraging, and kind, even the hardest days become manageable, grounded in a quiet sense of safety and inner peace. Talk to yourself with the deep, patient, and enduring love you so freely offer to the people you care about most. Give yourself permission to be a work in progress, to learn slowly, and to take things one day, one moment, and one breath at a time. As you practice this day after day, watch how that simple, persistent love quietly restores your spirit, strengthens your foundation, and heals your heart from the inside out. If you have stayed with this journey all the way to this final moment, take a deep, slow breath. Pause right where you are. Feel the physical reality of your feet resting against the ground, the gentle rising and falling of your chest, and the quiet stillness that exists beneath the surface of all your daily responsibilities. You have spent so much time listening, reflecting, and gently looking back at the ways you interact with your own heart. Now, it is time to take everything we have shared and bring it quietly home to yourself. Throughout this experience, we have explored the quiet echoes of our inner voice, the heavy burden of unseen expectations, and the soft warnings our minds and bodies send us when we are reaching our absolute limits. We have looked at what it means to meet our hidden shadows with kindness, to replace cold self-criticism with gentle words, and to reclaim our boundaries not as walls of rejection, but as profound acts of love. We have reflected on softening our resistance to our own light, learning the silent art of self-forgiveness, navigating life's messy transitions with grace, and making the conscious choice to show up for ourselves every single day. When you step away from this recording and return to the noise, demands, and speed of your ordinary life, the real journey begins. Healing is not something that happens in a sudden, dramatic flash of illumination. It is not a switch that flips, permanently removing all your doubts, fears, or weary moments. Healing is a quiet, ongoing conversation. It is built in the tiny, unglamorous choices you make when no one else is watching. It is what you choose to whisper to yourself when you drop something on a busy morning. It is the patience you extend to your own tired body when an afternoon fatigue settles into your shoulders. It is the courage to say a gentle no when your schedule is full, and the warmth with which you embrace your own past mistakes when old regrets try to pull you backward. There will still be days when the old habits try to return, days when your internal commentary slips back into a sharp, familiar critique, or when you feel overwhelmed by the expectation to hold everything together for everyone else. When those moments arrive, please remember that you have not lost your way. You have not failed, and you have not erased the progress you have made. Having a hard day simply means you are a human being living a real, complex life. The difference now is that you possess the awareness to pause, take a breath, and choose a different response. You have the power to stop the sharp reaction in its tracks and replace it with understanding. Imagine what your life could feel like if your own mind became the safest, most comforting place for you to land. Imagine moving through your days knowing that no matter what goes wrong on the outside, no matter what mistakes you make, what plans fall apart, or what unexpected storms come your way, the voice inside your head will always treat you with unwavering warmth, patience, and deep respect. You no longer need to search for permission, validation, or safety from the outside world when you have built an enduring sanctuary within your own heart. You are fully deserving of the exact same deep, unconditional love that you so freely, generously, and endlessly pour into everyone else around you. You do not need to earn your own kindness. You do not need to prove your worth, fix every single flaw, or reach an impossible standard of perfection before you allow yourself to breathe softly. You are worthy of gentleness right now, exactly as you are in this very moment, sitting with your full history, your ongoing growth, and your hopeful future. As we bring this journey to a close, let us create a lasting anchor for this new chapter. Take a quiet moment right now to ground your commitment. Lock in this practice and share your light with others who are walking this exact same path of healing. Leave a comment below and write down your own personal affirmation about talking to yourself with love. You can write, "I promise to speak to myself with the love, gentleness, and respect I deserve every single day." Or share a simple, honest truth from your own heart.